here and here. If that's the sun, it's brightest down sun, it's dim up sun, because there's very little forward scattering, and it's absolutely increasingly overwhelmingly obvious when you look opposite the sun with the sun directly behind you, as a real scattering glass set of ruins on the moon would be. And again, this analog film faithfully recorded this blue scattering in the blue layer. So once we had figured this part out, once we realized we were dealing with a guy who had impeccable credentials, who had a responsible position, who had done something incredibly patriotic and saved a priceless archive, we went to the Goddard Space Flight Center. This is 1995, which is the national repository of all NASA's data for the last, maybe 40 years? And we're going to stop another few minutes and have our break. And we went through for 2 days the archive, talking with the chief curator. This is Joe King, Dr. Joseph King, who runs it. And I'm showing him all of the data we'd accumulated from all previous missions, including some from Ken's stash. And I'm basically putting it to him and his staff, what do you make of this? And we spent 2 days there. And we showed them Ken's amazing imagery. We showed them the fact that you could duplicate, if you got the right set of negatives. The hope I had, the reason I went there, was can you find a similar Apollo record which will show us this contemporaneously? And they could not. They said they looked. They said over 2 days that they looked. And they couldn't find anything in their own archive that would match what was on Ken's print. So the issue for 12 years was undetermined. We held a press conference at the National Press Club. It had very weird reviews because we couldn't provide corroborating data. Now 12 years go by, and in those 12 years the World Wide Web, the internet, has been born and come to incredible maturity. There are now various archives, NASA website archives, all over the web, which are showing more and more copies of this Apollo film, and they're claiming, as part of their NASA persona, that they're scanning from original film maintained in Houston. Obviously, this got my attention. So, through our associates, we have many people out there who are technically proficient, who are part of kind of a subculture that feed us NASA data and look at websites and look at images and send us links and have active conversations with people in the agency who are, shall we say, friendly and more disposed to our perspective. And a few months ago, one of our colleagues, Keith Laney, sent me this scan from a scan that is actually on the NASA website. It's on the Apollo Lunar Surface Journal website. It is obviously a remarkable confirmation of frame 9301, currently on NASA's own archive, because you can see the glass tower, you can see these levels that are present in much greater geometric detail. Here's that one up here, here's the one below it over here. You can see vertical geometry, you can see exquisite detail, because remember, this is 40 years old, look ma, untouched by NASA, made from a much earlier generation negative, or actually reversal print, transparency from the Ektachrome. This one is a copy from a much later generation, but the main structure is still there. You can still see that, what I call the bullet hole, which is that blue kind of comet-like mark that appears to be a scarring in the glass by some meteor. And if you hit glass, let's say you fire a bullet hole through a windshield, you get a scarring pattern all around it. Well, this is what I think that is. That's not a imperfection on the film. That's an actual, imperfection in the glass ruins, because they were hit by some high-velocity micrometeorite or whatever. And then you can see along the horizon more glowing fuzz, and you can see a hint of geometry. Well, this is the confirmation that I've been looking for 40 years. This is Ken's original print. This is the current version that is now on the NASA websites, and you can actually go and download it. and this was from NSSDC. So, but things get better. It turns out now that as part of this scanning and putting new Apollo data up on the web, Ken has company. He's got other NASA people who apparently are in charge of a covert campaign to put up as much of those original copies that he was ordered to preserve. Remember they told him to save one copy and put it in the vault? They're scanning those copies now and they're putting them all over the NASA websites all over the world. And this is a photograph, this is a second photograph we found. It's not 9301, it in fact is another frame, and let me get the actual frame number. 9279. It's 9279, all right? Thanks, David. And when you lighten it up, this is the raw frame. Notice the landing leg of the lunar module here. This is the eastern leg. The spacecraft landed from this direction. East is in this direction. West is in this direction. You're looking north again. Mitchell is out over here, out of frame. So Shepard walks around the LEM and looks up the backside of the LEM and takes another picture looking north. If you brighten it up, bingo, there's the exact same geometric stuff in the sky seen on Ken's frame. And for all those people, those skeptics will say, you're looking at lens flare. Notice the shadows. The sun is literally 90 degrees, like over here. Or if I turn this way, there's the sun. The camera is looking this way. It is nowhere near the lens. It's looking north with the sun rising in the east. Actually, the geometry is pretty good here. There's no way that light can get into the camera because it cannot see the lens. So we're seeing the same geometry in the sky based on two separate frames. This is Ken's original. This is Ken's enhanced, brightened up to see the grid. This is the duplicate frame now on NASA's websites of Ken's original 9301, and this is the enhanced version of 9279, which is the second shot Shepard took looking north, and you can see exactly the same geometry here in all three frames. It has to be real glass ruins on the moon, tens, if not hundreds of miles beyond the foreground scene. Now what's really cool is that we've got stereo. And if we put them together and we do the measurements carefully, we might actually be able to figure out how far away this stuff is based on the fact that we've got a known baseline from the front of the LEM to around to the back of the LEM. And that is an astonishing thing to be able to use to measure the actual quantitative numbers of what we see in these preserved images. And on that, we'll take a short 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for the rest of the story. Very similar to what Mike did up here a few minutes ago, to try to get some sense of scaling. How big was the grid? How tall were these towers? The glass shards we're seeing, the buttresses, all of that. And then what he did in the computer was he created a three-dimensional grid model, which is basically what this looks like. And there's proper scaling in the computer model, and you know the individual pore size is X number of meters and all that kind of thing. And then we use this as a kind of a comparison predictive model to compare against other Apollo photography that we would get through the various archives that we would request original Apollo imagery from Houston to NSSDC to the Lunar and Planetary Laboratory to JPL to any place. I mean, NASA has archives around the country, and not just Houston.